Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into the source material you sent over, really aiming to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge.
Yeah, the goal here is to give you that shortcut, right?
Yeah.
So you can be genuinely well informed on a topic without getting, lost in all the detail.
Exactly. And today we're tackling the Global Manganese Alloys Market. We're basing this on a pretty comprehensive recent market report.
That's the plan. A deep dive into this specific corner of the industrial world.
We want to give you a clear picture, its size, its growth, what's actually driving it, and importantly, where things are happening geographically.
Okay, so let's get those headline numbers out right away. The report estimates this market globally at USD 32.82 billion in 2025.
32.8 billion. That's already substantial, but the projection is where it gets interesting, isn't it?
It really is. It's projected to grow quite a bit, reaching over USD 53.5 billion by 2033.
Wow. So what does that work out to in terms of growth rate?
That's a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of 6.30% between 2025 and 2033. So pretty steady, healthy growth.
6.3%. Okay. Definitely expanding consistently. All right, let's unpack that. What does the report say is fundamentally, making this market tick? What are the core drivers?
Well, it points to a few main things. Number one is this increasing interest globally in superior steel, higher quality steel grades.
Which makes sense. Steel is everywhere.
Absolutely, and manganese alloys are critical for achieving that quality. Related to that, developments in the automotive sector are another big driver.
How so? Later cars? Stronger?
Both, potentially.
Hmm.
Modern vehicles need more advanced materials. Specific steel alloys using manganese help with structural integrity, sometimes even weight reduction. So automakers are pulling that demand.
Okay, so demand from key industries needing better materials. What else?
Growing research and development is also mentioned, R&D. As material science gets better, people are finding new ways, new applications, optimized uses for these alloys.
Right, so innovation is playing a role too. Demand push plus innovation. Now, beyond those drivers, what about trends shaping the future?
The report highlights two key trends. First, there's growing attention on alternative energy sources,
Okay. How does that connect?
likely through the infrastructure needed. Think wind turbines, solar panel structures. They often require very robust steel, which loops back to manganese alloys.
So the green transition is actually boosting demand for these traditional materials. Interesting.
It seems so. The second trend is the growing improvement of facilities within the manganese alloy sector itself. Better production plants.
Meaning they're investing in becoming more efficient, higher capacity.
Yeah, exactly. It suggests the industry is gearing up to meet that rising demand we talked about.
Okay, so strong tailwinds from industry, from green tech, and from the producers themselves getting better. But it can't all be smooth sailing. What about challenges? Restraints?
Two main ones are flagged. First, price fluctuation for raw materials. Manganese ore, the key ingredient, its price can be pretty volatile. That hits production costs.
Classic supply chain headache.
Yep. And the second is strict environmental rules.
Hmm.
Making these alloys, it's energy intensive, can have environmental impacts. So regulations are getting tighter and manufacturers have to deal with that.
So cost volatility on one end, regulations on the other. That's the friction. Okay, that gives us a good feel for the dynamics.
That's the overall picture, yeah.
Now, let's get more specific. What kinds of manganese alloys are we talking about? The report breaks it down, right?
It does. It lists three main types: high carbon ferromanganese, refined ferromanganese, and silicomanganese.
And is one bigger than the others?
Yes. And this is interesting. Silicomanganese is predicted to actually dominate the market, the largest share.
Silica manganese, why that one specifically? What's its main job?
It's really tied to making high-quality manganese steel. Adding silica manganese, it reduces the steel's crystalline structure. This makes it tougher, more durable, and also cleaner by helping remove impurities, essential for advanced steel.
Okay, so its role in durability and cleanliness drives its dominance. Makes sense. Now, you said dominate, but is it the fastest growing?
Ah, good question. No, that's actually high-carbon ferromanganese. While silica manganese has the biggest slice of the pie, high-carbon ferromanganese is the segment growing the fastest.
Okay, different stories there. Largest share versus fastest growth. Why is high carbon ferromanganese growing so quickly then?
Its main thing is being a really effective desulfurizer and deoxidizer in metals. It's great at pulling out unwanted stuff like sulfur and oxygen from steel. This also gives the steel better durability, better abrasion resistance, so it's widely used especially in construction, automotive, that foundational use is driving its rapid growth.
Got it. Different jobs, different growth paths. Now, where do these alloys end up? What are the applications? The report mentions steel, superalloys, and others.
Unsurprisingly, yes, steel is the dominant application, holds the overwhelming majority of the market share.
Feels intuitive given everything we've said. Why is steel such a massive user?
It just comes back to that core function, improving steel quality, removing impurities like nitrogen, sulfur. It improves resilience, even appearance. And the report stresses the constant, massive global need for premium steel, for factories, for logistics, for huge infrastructure projects. That's the bedrock.
And you mentioned infrastructure projects are picking up steam globally, so that demand isn't going anywhere.
Exactly. That's expected to keep driving this huge segment.
What about superalloys? That was mentioned as expanding rapidly, too.
It is. That rapid expansion is also tied directly to needing materials like silica manganese and ferromanganese. Superalloys need really high performance, high purity. These manganese alloys help enhance characteristics and ensure that purity, which is vital for things like, jet engines or power turbines.
Okay, so steel is the giant, the main event. Superalloys are a smaller but faster-growing area, both needing these manganese alloys for quality and performance.
That sums up the application side pretty well.
All right, let's zoom out. The global picture. The report breaks this down by region, right? Market size, growth rates.
It does. And North America currently holds the biggest share, over 40% of global revenue.
40%. How big is that in dollar terms?
For 2025, it's estimated at USD 12.14 billion. The projected CAGR through 2033 is 4.8%.
Okay, 4.8%. Solid, but maybe not explosive growth compared to the global average.
Right. And within North America, the U.S. is the giant, USD 9.58 billion, but its CAGR is slightly lower, 4.6%. The report suggests that it might be linked to stringent government regulations there.
Interesting. And Canada and Mexico?
Canada's at about USD 1.46 billion, growing a bit faster at 5.6% CAGR. The report connects that to electric power applications. Mexico's around USD 1.11 billion, growing at 5.3%.
Okay, let's cross the Atlantic. Europe.
Europe's also very significant, over 30% of global revenue. That's a USD 9.52 billion in 2025, with a combined CAGR of 5.4%.
And within Europe, any standouts?
Germany is the largest single market there, about USD 1.88 billion, growing at 5.6%. Lots of major industrial players based there, right?
Right.
The UK is also notable, USD 1.6 billion, growing even faster at 6.2%. The report links that to demand for innovative tech adoption.
6.2% for the UK.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Asia Pacific, you mentioned that's where the story shifts.
Absolutely. APAC holds around 23% of the revenue, about USD 7.88 billion in 2025. But here's the kicker. It is by far the fastest growing region globally.
Faster than the overall 6.3%.
Much faster. The projected KGR for APAC is 9.0%.
Wow, 9%. That's where the momentum is.
Definitely. And within APAC, China is the powerhouse in terms of size. USD 3.31 billion market growing at a very strong 8.5% CGR, driven by that manufacturing focus.
But wasn't there another country with even higher growth?
Yes. India, the report calls it out specifically. Highest individual country KGR listed anywhere, projected 10.9% growth rate, starting from about USD 788 million in 2025.
Over 10% for India. Incredible. What about South Korea? Also strong. Around USD 945 million. With an 8.1% CAGR. The report connects that to worries about environmental sustainability influencing production choices.
So North America and Europe are the big established markets, but Asia-Pacific, led by China and especially India, is the growth engine.
That's the clear picture, yeah.
What about the other regions, South America?
South America has just over 5% share, about USD 1.25 billion in 2025, growing at a healthy 7.0% CAGR overall.
Any key countries there?
Brazil is major, around USD 534 million, growing at 7.6%. The report links that to the demand for energy-efficient sources. Argentina is smaller, about USD 210 million, but has a really high KGR listed at 7.9%, which the report connects to rising personal disposable income.
Rising income driving manganese alloy demand. How does that work?
Well, it's likely indirect, More disposable income means more consumer spending, which drives manufacturing, cars, appliances, construction, all needing steel, hence manganese alloys. It shows how these basic materials connect to broader economics.
Fascinating link. Okay, Middle East.
Middle East is smaller, around 2% share, maybe USD 1.31 billion, but growing fast, 7.6% CAGR. Saudi Arabia is the biggest listed there, USD 462 million, 7.9% CAGR. Turkey's mentioned too, smaller base, USD 105 million, but an 8.2% CAGR. linked to demand and supportive
Okay,
regulations.
Africa.
Africa's about 1% share, roughly USD 722 million in 2025, growing at 6.6% CAGR. South Africa is the largest mentioned, USD 254 million, 7.5% CAGR. Nigeria is smaller, USD 58 million, 6.8% CAGR, linked again to investments in energy sources.
So it really is a global market, but with very different stories playing out region by region, driven by everything from regulations to income levels to energy needs.
Exactly. You need that regional view to grasp the whole thing.
The report also touched on the companies involved, right? The competitive side.
Yeah.
Mentioned players like Tata Steel, Ferroglobe.
Yeah, the usual suspects in the material space. It did highlight a couple of specific recent news items, too.
Huh. A podcast about steel. Love it. Very appropriate.
Right. And maybe more strategically relevant, in April 2024, Ferroglobe PLC extended a big silicon supply agreement with Longji.
Longji, they're huge in solar panels, aren't they?
Exactly. A 3-year extension. Ferroglobe providing premium silicon and crystal. It directly links a major alloys producer with a key player in renewable energy.
That really connects back to the trends we discussed earlier, that growing attention on alternative energy sources driving demand. You see it happening in these company deals.
Precisely. It shows those macro trends playing out in business strategy.
Okay, wow, we've covered a lot of ground here. Taking that report, we've really tried to distill this global manganese alloys market.
Yeah, we looked at the size, the growth, those key drivers like better steel, automotive needs, and also the hurdles, raw material costs, environmental stuff.
And we broke down the types: silicomanganese leading in share because of its quality role, high carbon ferromanganese growing fastest due to its purification job, and how it all feeds primarily into steel, but with superalloys growing fast too.
Then we mapped it globally. The big established markets, North America, Europe, versus the real growth engine in APAC, especially China and India. Plus the unique factors driving growth in South America, the Middle East, Africa.
Right, and even saw how company moves reflect these bigger trends. So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Well, I think it shows how these fundamental materials, things you might not think about often, like manganese alloys, are just deeply woven into modern life.
Totally. They're literally in the structure of the buildings around you, the car you might drive, the bridges you cross. Understanding this market is kind of understanding a piece of the foundation of global industry.
And it highlights how big shifts technology, like EVs or renewables, infrastructure booms, environmental concerns, how they all ripple down and impact demand for specific materials like this. It shapes everything from, where factories are built to how things are made.
It's a great example of how interconnected everything is, from global economics down to material science.
Yep.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on. Given how vital these alloys are for steel and superalloys, and we talked about drivers like R&D and alternative energy, how might future innovations in manganese alloys themselves change the game?
Like, what if someone developed a radically better or cheaper way to make them? Or an alloy with entirely new properties?
Exactly. Could a breakthrough there fundamentally reshape industries, maybe lead to, I don't know, super efficient wind turbines, radically different building designs, or even lighter, stronger EVs in ways we can't quite picture yet? How might material innovation itself become the next big disruptor?
That potential for material science to unlock broader shifts. It's always fascinating to watch.
Absolutely. Something to keep an eye on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.